What does it mean to face down one's own demise? For the mech warriors of the Inner Sphere, whether they be mercenaries, house warriors, periphery pirates, or home militia units, they would face down a merciless onslaught by the invasion of the Inner Sphere from beyond. The Draconis Combine, however, would be the ones to name one of the smallest killers they encountered, as Clan Smoke Jaguar plunged into their territories, conquering world upon world. The Combine, as a military, often depended on light mechs at this time, and they would have the horrible task of facing down a terror, which would typically outflank them and then shred them, even though the perpetrator in question was only doing reconnaissance at the time. So terrible was this, it earned the name of Koshi by the Draconis Combine Mustard Soldiery, or Small Death. In this video, we are going to examine Smoke Jaguar's predatory light mech, the Lynx. A light mech weighing in at 25 tons, the Lynx has a mixed history, and despite its lethality, perhaps is a tale of how clan mech designs simply don't necessarily work in the realm of combat of the Inner Sphere. To begin the centuries-long journey of the Lynx, it was designed and built by technicians from Clan Smoke Jaguar in 2926. The reason for its original development was for it to act as a light scout and raider, which it functioned particularly well at in clan space. Its role and purpose reflected, frankly, much of the aggressive nature of Clan Smoke Jaguar in the 30th century, prior to the clan invasion, otherwise known as Operation Revival. In fact, the Smoke Jaguars took most of Clan Mongoose's territory in a trial of absorption shortly before the development of the Lynx. For the invasion, the Lynx would be found in the inventories of every single clan, though the Jaguars would be the organization which fielded it the most consistently, as well as in the greatest numbers and the largest number of roles. This raiding war machine would be the spear's tip for the Smoke Jaguar's assault on the Draconis Combine, and was often in the role of being the leader of a recon star, or at the very least taking point. Alternatively, they were fielded consistently with heavier mechs as well, either acting as flankers and back attackers on heavier units, or being used to shut down quick strikes from Inner Sphere light forces. As an Omnimech, these Battlemechs would see quick refits before being deployed, but there were major problems the Lynx would face on the much less controlled battlefields of the Inner Sphere, which it simply didn't have to in the native territories of its design. First, despite being a very good distance jumper for its time, it wasn't optimized enough to truly exploit this, in spite of clan technicians claiming it to be one of the greatest jumpers among clan mechs. Next, even though it uses clan ferrofibrous armor, the Koshi is extremely ill-prepared for any attack of significant magnitude. To cap these problems off, many of these mechs would be irretrievably lost, as the Inner Sphere's way of warfare was far more brutal and much more wasteful than their clan counterparts. The Lynx and many other clan mechs during the invasion, up until the annihilation of Clan Smoke Jaguar itself, were poorly suited for this kind of warfare, even though the Jaguars initially met great success with their campaign. This, ironically, made their fall all the harder, when the Inner Sphere's strategies and tactics turned the war in their favor. The clans themselves would learn many lessons from this failed invasion of the Inner Sphere, including how to better adapt their Omnimechs to the new realities of war that they faced. After the destruction of its creators, the Lynx would have a home, temporarily, with Clan Steel Viper and Clan Ice Hellion, at least in terms of being manufactured in the homeworlds. These functional owners of this legacy would not last very long, as both would be in essence destroyed during the Wars of Reaving, with Clan Ice Hellion's remnants fleeing towards the Scorpion Empire after being issued their death warrants, and the Steel Vipers being crushed and absorbed into Clan Staradder. As of the Ilclan era, this venerable clan light mech has been in service for over 2 centuries, but is now only manufactured on one planet which is still accessible to the Inner Sphere, the world of Alnabog, which is ruled by a deep periphery state, the Chain Lane Isles. The facility which it is manufactured from, though, SFFAL1, is a Seafox-owned facility, which distributes these products throughout their trade networks. They would see combat throughout the clan push towards the core of the Inner Sphere during the Dark Age, and they would be there for the destruction of the Republic that lay at its center. And these Koshis arrived with newer, better configurations than the ages before. The 25-ton, 30th century Omnimech veteran known as the Lynx, or Koshi, is a clan Omnimech with a series of noteworthy features. First, as an Omnimech, the Koshi doesn't have set weapon systems, but instead has a set amount of tonnage for non-essential components, including its weaponry, and this total changes per configuration. In the case of the Koshi, it has 7.5 tons of pod space available. This is very solid for a 25-ton mech, and it's about 30% of the mech's overall mass, which isn't too bad, all considering. Next up, it uses a standard gyro and cockpit, just due to the era it was designed in. It has the benefit of clan endo steel for its internal structure, saving some of its precious weight. As an aside, light mechs often benefit most from tonnage-saving technologies, whether they be clan or inner sphere, because they rarely are able to absorb all of their critical spaces with additional equipment, so having endo steel, ferrofibrous, and an XL engine, while this is extremely expensive, won't prevent the mech from appropriately being equipped. Clan light mechs as a whole benefit more from this than their inner sphere counterparts. It also benefits from having clan double heatsink technologies, which gives it 20 cooling per turn. This means it will rarely overheat given its tonnage for weaponry, unless it is used wildly irresponsibly. Clan Omnimechs also benefit from being able to add additional heatsinks as needed, if they have the room for them in their tonnage pool. Inherently though, due to the small size of the engine, 3 double heatsinks are placed within its critical spaces. These are not rearrangeable and they are not Omnitech double heatsinks. For onboard electronics, the Koshi is equipped with a Build 1685/5 Tacticom package, and for its targeting and tracking, it has a Series 3 GDS with a built-in active probe. The Lynx, as of this time, has the improved sensors quirk as a result of its Series 3 GDS, and also has the incredibly powerful narrow profile trait, making it harder to get clean hits on. But these only apply if you're playing with the advanced rules. One of the most controversial things about the Lynx is how it handles parts of its movement. To start with, the Koshi, as the Combine named it of course, has an extremely impressive 3.5-ton Clantech Type 2 175 XL Fusion engine, giving it a maximum speed of 118 km per hour, or 11 movement points in the tabletop game. This means that the Koshi, when in the open, should be able to generate 3 or 4 defensive movement modifiers when running, which is exceptional. If it has to turn repeatedly, it will deplete this ability, but a skilled pilot will make the most of this. This movement is more than acceptable for a recon mech and skirmisher. This gives the Lynx opportunities to generate great strikes on slower targets, or to be able to defend itself against other light battle mechs, provided that it isn't being bogged down by terrain. The controversy for the Lynx, in fact, comes from its jump jet allocations. The Lynx is equipped with 6 jump jets into the base frame and model. Now this may not matter in the context of Mechwarrior, and it's largely glossed over in the lore for the setting, but this shortcoming is very noticeable in the tabletop game. Jumping brings major penalties to both those attacking the jumper and the jumper themselves. Movement is all about optimizing one's own defenses versus the reduced effectiveness on their own attacks, especially for light mechs. The Lynx, because it can only jump 6 when it could potentially jump 7, is less effective at getting defensive bonuses, and can't jump as far as needed to generate a 4th defensive bonus. This is the single biggest complaint about the mech from a gameplay perspective from veteran mech commanders and mech warriors. The other major factor that the mech has to take into account is its defensive plating. The Koshi is, like its stablemate the Firemoth from Technical Readout 3050, starved for armored protection, despite the incredibly sophisticated nature of Clan Ferrofiber's technologies. To protect itself, the Koshi has a total of 3.5 tons of armored plating of the prior mentioned Clan Feral armor. For the era of the Succession Wars, this would have been a more than sufficient total, as it does have 67 points of armor overall. The problem is, for the Clan Invasion era, where weapons hit much harder, especially Clan Tech-based weapons, this can leave a lot to be desired. Certainly, it is more armored than a Firemoth, but the Firemoth also happens to move significantly faster than the Lynx, giving it more defense. Overall, this isn't a terrible amount of plating, but it does mean if the Koshi ever gets trapped, or cornered, or a lucky hit happens, it can rapidly lead to its demise. For instance, it has 5 points of armor and 6 internal structure points in one of the most vital areas for all light mechs, which is its legs. This is something to remember, as a single kick, or an autocannon blast of some sort hitting it in the knee, might just be its doom. The most frequently deployed, and considered to be the most optimal configuration by most pilots during the Clan Invasion, would have been the Prime configuration. And the Prime leans heavily into ammunition-based weapons, which means it will almost never overheat under any circumstances, even while jumping. To start with, for long-range fire, or even for up-close fire, given the nature of Clan missile tech, it has an LRM-10 launcher in its left arm. This gives it the same firepower as a baseline Valkyrie, for instance, but at all ranges, meaning it can offer indirect fire support and harassment up to 21 hexes. Next, to back this up, it has an SRM-4 Streak mounted in the right arm, giving it greater scattershot ability and crit seeking when attacking. Finally, for dealing with infantry, the Koshi comes with a pair of right arm mounted machine guns. These allow it to clear off enemy light forces, or add weight of fire against other battlemechs. Overall, the Prime seems to be configured for supporting other battlemechs that do more direct damage, and it is effective at that job. It has several problems. First out the gate is that it is totally ammunition dependent, which creates a lot of problems as well if it itself is critically hit, because if its ammunition goes off, it might not destroy the Koshi due to the nature of clan cases, but it might just kill or incapacitate the pilot. And it's going to be ironically poor at being a duelist, and most clan mechs are deliberately meant to be duelists. A more dedicated close-range backstabber and brutalizer, the B configuration is one of the best pure killers as a light mech from the Invasion. Armed with close-range, hard-hitting systems, it's impossible to ignore and will score kills on other light mechs in fast duels, or it might even get some kills on heavier targets who don't have their backs watched. First, it has a pair of ER medium lasers in the left arm, giving it a great punch-through ability for its weight. Next, it has an ER small laser in the right arm. But the most devastating element of this weapons package is the fact that it has 2 SRM-6s, in addition, mounted into the right arm, along with 2 tons of SRM ammunition. These missiles and lasers can be fired together in full alpha strikes, and it will only barely overheat the mech in theory. A full back attack, or striking against a weakened target, will be an absolutely devastating barrage from this configuration. It should not be underestimated for any reason, even with its jump mobility being imperfect. What if someone loved ATMs? And the Lynx? What if they really wanted them to be together, and to live happily ever after? Configuration E does just that. Armed with 4 ER small lasers in the right arm as a close-range backup weapon, the E then installs an ATM-6 in the left arm, along with 2 tons of ammunition, giving it 20 rounds of fire. ATMs are the best missile system in the game, with the missiles being launched rapidly in 3 selectable configurations per selected stat. These missiles together can hit with an intense force, or with long range, or a compromise between the two. When combined with small lasers, and used in its high explosive mode, the resulting damage could be catastrophic. The E configuration is exceptionally dangerous, especially at close ranges. One of the most interesting innovations of the later part of the 31st century was the invention of the machine gun array, which allows for focused fire between multiple MGs. Another brutal invention was the heavy machine gun, which was created by Clan Smoke Jaguar before their inevitable destruction. With their deaths, this technology spread into the other clans, including the other stewards and manufacturers of the Lynx. What if I told you that there was a Koshi built for one purpose? What if I told you that it was built to machine gun and chew bubblegum, and it was all out of bubblegum? The G configuration has 4 heavy machine guns in each arm, and each set of these machine guns are aligned into an array. This means that these MGs, if they land on target, will potentially do over 10 damage per side. These are great at killing infantry still, or for battering Battlemechs. The only downside is it has a 2 hex range. But that's not all it has, because backing all of this up is the Koshi's favorite 4 ER small lasers. This is a short-range brawler, and it is not one to be taken lightly. It will rip and tear through mechs, especially their rear armor, until it is done. The highest battle value version of the Lynx is the Dark Age and Ilclan era configuration labeled the J. While most of this venerable Battlemech's configurations prior to the Dark Age or Ilclan era focus in on something which tends to be more running and gunning, backstabbing, or providing various forms of scatter damage, or pinpoint direct fire with medium or small scale weaponry, the J deviates from this quite a bit. Clan Seafox conceived a variant instead, which focuses in on punch-through weaponry and additional speed. To start with, it has a supercharger installed, increasing the Lynx's speed to over 150 km per hour when it's engaged for short bursts. For close-range fire, it has an improved heavy-medium laser in the right arm. The most important, though, is that it has a left-arm mounted Clan ER PPC, which allows this cat to reach out at long range and harass, snipe, or even headshot enemy targets. With its speed and even its boosted speed, it can act as a dangerous sniper that just keeps out of its opponent's ranges. Or it will move so fast, at such a long distance, that it will become nearly impossible to hit. This is an extremely dangerous mech, especially for something which only weighs 25 tons. As with all Omnimechs, the baseline chassis is very important, but it's only part of the overall Battlemech's capabilities. The Lynx as a chassis does suffer from some issues with how it was designed and developed. Even if these inefficiencies seem minor, they can make a big impact overall on the performance of the Battlemech, especially because it is a lighter model. But all the same, technicians with Clan Smoke Jaguar, Clan Seafox, and others would use the relatively large amount of pod space this mech offers to build dedicated variants for multiple roles that will deliver, in an extremely capable way. Whether it be backstabbing, brawling, close-range crit-seeking and support, or even sniping, the Lynx can be configured for these roles. The real challenge for any Mechwarrior or Mech Commander has when employing this Battlemech is the same as any other: how best to employ its strengths against its targets, while hiding or reducing its weaknesses. Because in the case of the Lynx, no matter how deadly it can be, it is one mistake away from being punished to the point where it may not be able to recover. But that doesn't mean it can't shred through a whole lance of mechs first, if it is allowed to. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. I appreciate it. And there is more content coming, and you'll probably enjoy it, I think. But with that, I will catch all of you in the comment section below.